All right, welcome all. This is the September 24th meeting of the Committee on Administration for Dunn County. First thing I would like to do is take roll call. Supervisor Tim Leno.
Present.
Supervisor James Tripp.
Here.
Dave Bartlett, County Chair.
Here.
John Calabrese.
Here.
Okay, and also Sheila Story. Okay, and Sheila's here. Also joining us a number of the county staff. And our first order of business will be approval of the minutes from the August 27th, 2020 meeting of this committee. Anyone like to make a motion for the acceptance of those minutes?
I make a motion, we accept them as printed.
Okay. Dave
Second.
Bartlett has made the motion. The motion was seconded by Supervisor Tim Leno. Any corrections or changes that anyone noted? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, we going to move on. We have staff reports. All the members of this committee should have received the staff reports in writing. And are there any questions on any of our staff reports that we received?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir, Mr. Tripp.
First of all, reading through the staff reports, when I do it carefully, which I did this time, begin to understand the complexity of some of these positions. And so I've got a question for Mr. Stry. There's mention of an A87 audit. And so I looked up A87, and that's apparently from the Office of Management and Budget, and it talks about exceptions. Can you very briefly give us some idea what kind of exceptions those are or how they relate?
I guess I'm not sure of the language on exceptions, but and your source for that, but it's commonly known as the 87 audit. It's where our cost allocation plan or indirect costs that we can allocate to grants is determined. And that's how we're able to charge administration and other general costs against grants. The county in some grants has the option of just taking a flat percentage. Many times that doesn't work in the county's favor. So in order to claim anything beyond a flat amount, we have to have an allocation plan that's independently verified.
Thank you. That, I should have realized that virtually, well, not all, but many of our audits have to do with the proper allocation of grant money.
Correct.
And because we have so many grants. Okay,
Correct.
Thank you. I don't see Heather Murray here, but I had a couple of questions in relation to the HR report also. One was she noted that there were a couple of mask issues, people not wanting to wear masks, and without knowing, I don't need to know names or anything, but I'm just wondering how those are handled, and maybe Mr. Miller can fill us in on that.
I can't tell you the exact situations, but what we do is, listen to what the person has to say and then compare their needs against the recommendations from our public health department. If we can accommodate remotely so that the mask issue is no longer an issue, and that's obviously preferable. But we have to be aware of the fact that during this time of the pandemic, that even somebody who feels well may in fact be infectious, and that works either for the person asking not to use the mask or other people as well. But I can't tell you the resolution on those particular cases.
No, but that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have one other question in regard to the HR report as well. And this is a little academic and probably cannot be answered tonight, but given all our discussion of health insurance and costs, do we have any idea what it costs the county simply to administer our health insurance and our insurance program? Because one of the things I noticed in there was a a charge, I think it's in the audit as well, or the vouchers, to M3 Financial.
Mhm.
And it just got me to thinking that, and again, that question's a little academic, but maybe at some point we can discuss that a little bit.
We can get that information for you, Supervisor Tripp.
Thank you. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Tripp. Anyone else?
I have a question, if I may.
Supervisor Lino, go ahead.
Yeah, this is in the point right above the 887 cost allocation. This is for Mr. Stray. We see this $24,500 with SAP. I was wondering if you could elaborate a little on that.
Oh, good gosh.
I sure can. And
What's
I'm
going
glad-
on?
Sorry.
Glad we're all sitting. Without going into great detail, part of that whole settlement agreement discussion, the transition to us becoming a direct client of SAP versus going through a reseller, which is what Quintel was set up as. Part of that process, SAP had to establish us as a brand new direct customer and remove Quintel from the mix. So what happened was for 2018, the county paid for all of SAP licensing and support through Quintel. Well, the transition date was August 1st, 2018, or I'm sorry, 2019. And so they issued a refund to Quintel. That's who was their agent on our behalf. Quintel kept the refund, did not return it to us, claiming it was part of the settlement agreement. We spent a year disputing that, asking SAP to assist us and to, if anything, waive it. But they chose not to. And so in the end, the county had to pay SAP for the refund or for that allocated amount as a direct customer of theirs. Our options beyond that are very limited. Had conversation with Corporation Counsel and County Manager, and simply it wasn't in the county's interest to spend a lot of legal fees chasing $24,000, unfortunately. It isn't for a lack of trying. I tried legal avenues. I tried playing to their appealing to their customer relations, but in the end, we weren't successful.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Anyone else?
I would
Okay,
like the minutes to note that I did not ask that question.
You were thinking about though. Consideration for actions taken by the Committee on Administration. 5A is for the year 2020 budget adjustment for the county clerk. You have that information in your packet. Anyone have any questions about that upcoming adjustment?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Tripp, please go ahead.
no questions, but I would like to note, and you've probably noticed that it says Department of Human Services rather than County Clerk on the resolution. Right on the first line above the grants there.
It does say that. You're correct. Thank you.
You're correct, Mr. Tripp. Thank you. I didn't catch that. But anyway, the clerk did receive a grant. Anyone have any questions to Julie about this money?
We'll take it.
Was that a motion?
You like to move this forward to the board? Anyone?
It's actually moved forward to Executive Committee for
Or
action.
the Executive Committee, okay. Someone like to make that motion, we move it on.
I will make that motion with the correction.
Okay, thank you, Tim. So at the top of the resolution, we'll read County Clerk rather than Department of Human Services. Is that correct? Thank you. All right, do we have a second to the amendment amended motion?
A second.
John Calabrese seconds that. Anything else? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we'll send this on. All right, audit of our vouchers. You should have received the vouchers in a new, easier to read format. And thank you to IT for doing that, or whoever did it. I certainly appreciate it. Any questions about any of the vouchers themselves?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, James Tripp, please go ahead.
I have a couple of things. Number one, the name Christopher J. Hessenberg comes up a couple of times. And in one place, it looks like a financial charge. And then another couple of places, it looks like it's equipment charges. Now, Christopher J. Hessenberg isn't some code word for going into the slush fund, is it? Tell me it's not.
It is not.
Thank you. That's kind of a offhanded question. My real question, though, is at the very top of page 16 on the vouchers, and there's a couple of vouchers that relate to the neighbors of Dunn County. We don't generally do that. What's the status on those? Why are they, how are they different? It's for salaries and wages. Express Services, I'm guessing, is that a temp agency? It's right at the top of page 16.
It does sound that way, doesn't it?
Yes, it
Well-
does. We'll have to look at that and see the account that is charged to salaries and wages. That might be a coding error. I believe that might be contracted services. Express Services, I believe, is a contracted agency. So
That would be my guess. And the
I
fact that
can
it's in our
research
voucher-
that and email the committee back.
I'm sorry, Keith. I apologize for interrupting. What I didn't catch it.
I'll research that and email the committee back.
Okay, thank you. That was all.
Thank you, Jim. Anyone else?
Nope.
Okay. Hearing no other questions, would someone like to make a motion that we approve the vouchers as listed on our report?
I will move, Mr. Chair. Tripp.
Thank you, James Tripp. We
Well,
have a second.
second, Lino.
Second, Supervisor Lino. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the vouchers as printed, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. Consideration for reports, resolution, ordinances to the county board.
Wait, we do have one
Wait.
more action by the committee on the agenda, on the amended agenda.
Oh, I must have.
Here.
Okay. Thank you.
It's in bold type.
Okay. 5C, temporary amendment to vacation policy. Thank you.
And I will present that. I don't believe Heather Murray was able to be with us. She had a conflict today. You have a staff report that was submitted to the committee after the main packet as an additional item. You've had an issue that's come up. HR has been working with our public health department, which has been, as you can imagine, putting in considerable amount of time. We've got vacation maximum accruals that normally occur. The healthcare providers have been working overtime, and time away from work has been granted to prevent employees who are reaching that maximum from losing that accrual. Recently, we saw, and we've seen, if you've been following our email blasts, an increase in the number of cases that are requiring the contact tracing. This dramatic increase is making it difficult to approve vacation requests, because if we have people going on vacation, we're falling further and further behind on the contact tracing that's a necessary part of following up the pandemic here in Dunn County. So HR is recommending a temporary policy which would allow HR and payroll to provide the compensation for any vacation request that's been denied to a worker as a result of the need to stay on top of this workload. We had some proposals, for working less time, but we really need the personnel there. The department heads would have to approve the payment of accrued vacation and identify the time as being a consequence, the time due to the increased workload that's happened from COVID-19. So far, we've only had one employee that's made that appeal, but we can anticipate that there will be others. So action by this committee is basically being requested to provide the oversight that this isn't purely an administrative decision in response. I will also note that if we were still under our state of emergency declaration, which lapsed in September earlier this month, this is something that we would have handled at the staff level. But in the absence of that state of emergency declaration and the special authorities that it granted, we felt it prudent to get the endorsement, basically, of this committee on this temporary change in terms of paying out vacation time for emergency responders and healthcare providers specifically. The term would be effective immediately and run through and expire December 31st, which is also the time when the emergency orders related to other elements of the federal response to the COVID-19 pandemic also expire.
So maybe you can justify this part, or not justify, but explain it. So are we talking about actually just paying that out to them in addition, as in saying, hey, you didn't get to use it, so
Right.
you can receive payout?
Rather than losing it.
Right.
And that would be in the case where the caseload simply doesn't allow us to say, yes, take the time off.
Right. We've done that at Walmart Corporation, and I think that's sounds like a fair way to approach it. I would be in favor of that. Any other comments?
Seems
I
late.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Tripp first, and then Mr. Leno, and then Mr. Bartlett, I think.
If I understand correctly, this is tied to some federal regulation that's effective until the end of December because of the COVID crisis. Is that part correct?
Well, we are using the end of the federal exemptions for leave due to the COVID crisis as also an end date for this temporary policy, yes.
And the reason I ask is because I'm thinking about the expiration of this rule and thinking that much as I had hoped that the crisis would be over by now, I have the suspicion that we're in for a little bit longer haul. And the end of the year is always a difficult time because of meeting conflict schedules and stuff like that. In short, is it a reasonable suggestion to put that expiration date, say March 31st of 2021?
We can, this committee can endorse any end date. I really appreciate that point because as a longtime member of this committee, as you know, we very often will meet once for both November and December, usually in between Thanksgiving and Christmas, since the normal days would have us fall right at or right before those holidays. It is possible that we, could bring this up again at a December meeting, which might take place, something we're going to talk about in October, might take place on December 3rd or December 10th, that we would have enough heads up to extend it at that time. On the other hand, there's nothing that says that we can't set a later date for the expiration of this temporary, and ending in at the end of the first quarter of next year seems entirely reasonable time to set.
If there's no particular reason not to extend the expiration, then I would make a motion to amend. Well, that's a staff report. Is there a resolution that goes along with this?
No, this is a committee. The If I may recommend Supervisor Tripp, the motion perhaps that you would be anticipating would be to endorse a temporary policy for the payout of vacation beyond the maximum accrual that's been denied due to COVID-19 workloads to emergency responders and healthcare providers for a term to extend to the end of March 2021.
Yeah, what he said. That's what I
Okay.
moved.
Okay,
I would second that.
okay.
Second
right.
from Supervisor Story.
Okay, thank you, Sheila. Tim, did you have a comment? You were up next.
Well, I was thinking the same thing that Supervisor Tripp had said also, as I thought to myself, this seems pretty arbitrary to end at this time and not extending it. So I'm all in favor of this one, absolutely. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Chairman Bartlett?
I was wondering if this has to go to county board because it has to do with benefits and wages.
Corporation Counsel should weigh in on that.
Yeah, Heather and I discussed this. It was my opinion, because it's a temporary change and the committee on administration is ostensibly approving the change based on known circumstances, that it would be all right for the committee to handle it. If you note in the last paragraph of the policy, it states that if there is an extension, that it would have to be approved by the County Board of Supervisors. And so I guess in the balance, what we have is a temporary change to policy that isn't arbitrary. And if it's going to have a more indefinite duration, then it would have to come to the County Board of Supervisors for consideration. And so I think the committee can make this change, but the longer it lasts, the more it feels like a kind of a permanent change, and then it really should come to the county board. But I think the language in the expiration section, number 7, addresses that well.
So it's okay to go to March, whatever.
31st.
I think as long as there's a finite time period, there's a
Okay.
definite endpoint. And if it has to go beyond that, it will require the county board to address it.
Okay, any other questions? If not, we do have a motion made by Mr. Tripp and seconded by Supervisor Story. Are we ready for that vote? Okay, all those in favor of making this change, a temporary change to the benefits as far as vacation time that has not been able to be accessible by these employees, that they would receive payout in lieu of getting the time off. Is that correct? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes. Thank all of you and good discussion. That did it? Okay. We have no other resolutions or ordinances this time to go to the county board with. We're down to actually number 7. Our next meeting, which would be a meeting date of October 22nd, 2020. Anything in terms of announcements? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you all for being here. And thank you for the fine reports from our staff.
Bye all.
Bye all.
Thank you.